brothers and sisters. We are out of the family room and we're looking at the garden. In front of us we see peppers and there are some tomatoes. Of course, the rest of the yard may look kind of terrible, so I'm not going to show it. Yard equipment. The peppers are all on the same level, ground. They're gaining water from the ground, nourishment from the ground. I must say, yes, it needs a little bit of work. But for today, we know them as peppers and tomatoes. Jesus said, Matthew 23, in verse 6, "And love the uppermost rooms and feasts and chief seats in the synagogues and greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi. Be not ye called Rabbi, for one is your master, even Christ, and all ye are brethren, and call no man your father upon earth. For one is your Father which is in heaven. Neither be ye called masters, for one is your master, even Christ. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted." Religious titles have been around for many, many years. There's been great debate on whether to be called by them, but there's an understanding. These peppers, there's actually two types, cayenne and jalapeno. Last year we had some habaneros and banana peppers. Here in the tomatoes we have early girls, big boys, and the hamburger blend. In the backside we have some squash and cucumber that did not fare as well. The titles that we give church leaders are simply that. They help us designate who's in charge. They help us designate their gifts in the fellowship of Christ. When we eliminate these titles, it can cause some confusion. I would fair say that most people would not eat a habanero. But if we don't give it its title, it would be a huge surprise when one takes a bite of it. The same thing with the jalapeno and the cayenne, when one may favor a bell pepper. In the tomatoes, there are different flavors, sizes, and also other varieties that we look for. You would not want to find a big boy tomato in a salad. You prefer a salad tomato or a cherry tomato. One may be a professor in the church, a professor of, let's say, religious studies or Christian studies, of Christian theology. But when we lose these titles, it does not mean we lose who we are. It simply means that we no longer identify ourselves as a professor. We have evangelists, pastors. Some churches acknowledge prophets and apostles. These simply designate the position in which this person fulfills in that church. You have professors. We can look at a professor at a church, at the Harvard Seminary. We see them in a completely different status, as you may see one who simply paid to receive their diploma. They may be a master of religious studies, but does that mean that they actually earn it? And having this title, we need to know from where they received it from. Myself, I'm presently studying for a Bachelor of Science in Religion for church ministries, and that would be a title same. But where did I receive it from? Well, I'm studying at the Liberty University. I'm not saying that everybody has to, but this kind of gives you the idea as to where my credentials would be coming from. The same thing would go with the Collar Crusade, from which you would be viewing this. The titles that we receive, or the titles that we designate to ourselves, makes a big difference. Someone may call themselves an evangelist, but it's the credentials of experience and lifestyle that we have to shoulder upon ourselves. It's not simply a privilege, it is a burden. For many years I was a security officer, but many people consider that more of like a security guard. But I shouldered the idea of that an officer required a lot more. There was more requirements when I did carry a firearm. There was a great deal of responsibility that I did not take anywhere lightly. There was many times in which I actually shunned the idea of having to carry a firearm on the side of my uniform. The responsibility that went with it was a great deal. So is the same of many titles within the church. We have a pastor. The pastor is a shepherd, not only to guide and lead the flock, but at times may have to protect the flock from the wolves that are waiting outside, wanting to try to cause the flock to go astray. Jesus said that these titles are meaningless because we are supposed to be servants. Those who call themselves masters are simply calling themselves that. Being a servant of God is our greatest title, and that is what we should shoot for. Being called a pastor or an evangelist or a missionary is a title in which it designates our position in the body of Christ. To take a jalapeno pepper and put it into a salsa is simply fulfilling one of the purposes that pepper is designed for. We can add it to all kinds of food. We have our titles. That is for sure. That is part of man. But what we do with that and how we fulfill the purpose that Christ has designated for us makes the difference. We can simply lounge around holding on to that title and do absolutely nothing with it. Or we can take that title and realizing it is a responsibility, realizing that we must fulfill our position and purpose in the body of Christ for His glory is not taking that title in vain or simply flaunting it as if it's our designation in life, but it gives us a position that we must fill and the responsibilities that we must uphold for the glory of God and for the edification of the glorious church of Christ. Thank you very much. You have a blessed day.